Alright guys, that's coming again. I hope you're doing well and enjoying your day so far. Major 3 is just a couple of days away, and if OpTic Tectors want to make the run that they need to make it comfortable for them to qualify for the World Championship, they'll need to clean up on a couple of the big mistakes they made this last weekend against Atlanta FaZe. They made it to the winners bracket regardless, but JP says that there was that critical moment in the round 11 Hacienda against FaZe, and exactly describing what went down for OpTic to somehow throw away that round. Shotzzy's play was definitely causing lots of controversy, but apparently it was Skyz's communication during the situation where the missile was called in that led to this whole scenario unfolding, although some aren't convinced that fully explains the situation. Very much enjoyed your thoughts in the comments below. Hit the like button if you enjoy. Subscribe if you're new as always. I greatly appreciate it. Plenty to get into today. Thought this was pretty cool to start off with. Of course, we saw Formula yesterday take the win in Halo. There's been a lot of talk as well about, oh, could he come back to cards? We talked about it last off-season. We talked about it probably the off-season before, about all these possibilities. Look, if Formal's ever going to come back to cards, he's probably only coming back to OpTic unless, you know, one of these Saudi teams actually does come in and has a lot of money to spend and they're looking to sign players like Formal to their franchise. Maybe that's not entirely impossible either. The thing that Formal has been hesitant to come back to cards is just in Call of Duty, the teams practice a lot compared to Halo. And I'm not saying that these COD pros are like insanely committed and grinders. Some of them are, sure. But in Halo, they play like 1 scrim set a day. In COD, they play 2, sometimes 3, then 8 and other things too. And not to say, oh wow, like amazing, you're playing like 15 maps of COD a day, how hard is your life? But you know what I'm saying, right? So Formal's kind of said this before, that he's able to play Halo and continually play at a very high level without getting burned out as he did in Call of Duty, certainly when it was all online in the Cold War season, just because of the different level of expectations and practice that the teams tend to go through over there. So coming back to cards seems like a bit of a long shot. We talked about it before. We know that Nadeshot potentially gave him an offer or whatever to come back and lead their team, but he's staying in Halo and it's working out for him so far that OpTic Halo team is potentially going to get even better as the year goes on, and has now won a championship in Halo or COD in 11 different years. 2011, 2013 I imagine was Halo because it came over to Call of Duty in the 2014 year. It was, well, Ghosts came out in 2013, but he came over to Call of Duty during the 2014 season and almost immediately started to win things like Gfinity 3. So pretty legendary career as we know, but this weekend is Major 3 in Miami. It's actually in Florida where Formal had some of his great victories, right? Orlando was the seat of the crime on many occasions. That's where Formal and the OpTic guys won the World Championship back in 2017. Not that far in the grand scheme of, you know, geography from where Miami's going to be, but of course the event is going to be up there in Boca Raton. These are the standings after the, well, major qualifiers, at least how things look. Just to keep in mind, by the way, no minor at this stage, not like that mattered anyway. And, well, would you guys have preferred a minor? What did we think of this stint? Because the start of the season, we had 5 weekends of qualifiers, basically. 4 of them were qualifiers, and 1 of them was the minor. Was that better than what we have now? Going from, you know, just 3 weekends of qualifiers straight into the major? Look, I think a lot of this had to do with timing on when they could get the venues and all of that type of stuff. And I'm pretty sure the reason they even held the minors was purely for that reason, that, okay, we can do the venue and the date of the major here, so then we have to work backwards and say, okay, what are we going to do for the qualifiers? But it does feel like a, you know, it's a strange esport, isn't it, where we have some qualifier set a 7 and we've got minor tournaments online, and some qualifier set to 5. So, you know, it's not exactly optimal maybe, but it's preferable than having no season at all. I think 5 qualifiers is okay as long as there were more majors. I don't mind doing 5 qualifiers over 3 weekends, major, and then do that 6 times. But when there's only going to be 4 majors plus champs and then the World Cup as well, I don't mind it being more spread out. I actually would have preferred every stage. Obviously, this is like hypothetically speaking, when the venues are available and what's going on. Like DreamHack Dallas was going to be where DreamHack Dallas was. That was not changing. So to make it work was potentially going to be an issue. But I wouldn't have minded at all running 7 qualifier matches with a minor every single stage. I thought that was a pretty good runway, to be honest. You have 5 weeks of, you know, Call of Duty, and the minor was, I thought, a great little piece in there to see where the teams were at in a tournament kind of setting before the big tournament. And then the big tournament happens, you get a week off, then you go at it again, and you do that maybe 5 times, and then, ideally anyway, then you've got 5 majors, plus champs, plus EWC, and then you've also got 5 online tournaments, which also carry some serious just wait, because look, do I prefer tuning into one of those minor weekends or watching some qualifiers? Look, the qualifiers lately have been pretty good because there's lots to play for right now, and the league is very interesting when you've got 5 teams up here at 4-1, and then some teams still struggling big time. But even Rocker were very, close, and Falcons were close to getting some serious points on the board this stage, but eventually that didn't happen, of course. So this is the first round, just to keep it in mind. It's Ravens Thieves starting off the day, and the final game of the day on the Thursday, as always, is going to be OpTic versus Boston Breach. They're leaving the best until last. So they've got Thieves underway first, presumably because they think that's going to be a pretty hot 3-0. I guess we'll see. FaZe Surge, I mean, what's your pick of the first round games here, right? We'll talk a little bit more about this later on today, but what's your pick of the first round games? OpTic Boston is obviously up there. Toronto Heretics is up there. FaZe Surge is up there. Like, any of those series, I think, probably could go either way. But as I say, we'll talk a little bit more about that later on. What I wanted to dive into is how we got to this point, because OpTic, congratulations, they made it to the winners brackets, but they did not make it easy for themselves. Had they lost to FaZe as they did, but if Falcons had have beaten Boston in the Game 5 Round 11, then it would have been OpTic Gaming, Texas, in the losers bracket for the Major. But Boston clutched up, or Falcons choked, depending on your perspective, so OpTic did make it in the end. But the FaZe series was fascinating. They won the Game 1 on the Hacienda very impressively. It went to a Round 11 in the Search and Destroy, and on the Round 11, we then saw what is now being considered a like kind of a classic OpTic moment where somehow they throw away an advantage which really they should not have done. So this, of course, was a screenshot from the minimap, but I'll share the full clip for you guys in a second. But I'm sure you guys have watched this round a million times back already, especially if you're an OpTic fan, that they got the bomb down at A in a 4v4. Skyz then got the streak. Now, I was making the point on the Joke Check show last night, and I'll still stand by this, that, look, Skyz got the streak when he planted the bomb, so it's, not necessarily like they were, that's what I believe anyway, so I'm not exactly sure they were fully prepared for it, but still, JP describes in this clip that when they got the streak, Skyz was like, what should I do with the streak? Should I call it now? Should I save it for later or whatever? My opinion, you should have a preset idea. Like, if you've got one player one off a streak, there should be a play call where you say, and maybe they had that, right? They were like, look, we're going to go A, we're going to plant the bomb for Skyz, we're going to get the streak, we're going to do this. And seems like a good plan, but when that happens, you've got to have like a plan of action. You've got to know before what you're going to do. And I'm not saying you've got to know before as in the 10 seconds before the round. I'm saying like this is something you prep at the whiteboard back at the hex quarters to figure out, okay, if this type of scenario unfolds, what exactly is the play call, right? Because look, yes, there was a miscom here, and we're going to get into what JP said about it, but equally, if you're calling in a streak and you're wasting time off the clock, it's the perfect opportunity for someone to potentially take a full pinch all the way around the map. That was an option too, or at least at the bare minimum, for Shotzzy and Huke to play this one together, rather than Shotzzy to run up mid on his own to try and flank you and get shot in the side for no reason from top mid, when it was pretty clear there was going to be somebody there. So JP explains what happened on this, and, well, his explanation has definitely caused some controversy, and then I'll share what Don said on our show about it last night, because he's not so convinced this applies.
In this moment, C's is basically calling, like, yeah, do you want me to use a streak, or do you want me to save it? And he's saying, basically, like, Loki, I'll save it, but everyone calls him off and says, just, Loki, use it. I think you probably just use it, just to get the information on the guys. I think there's an argument to say, save it until you see someone or something, and call it from a safe place. I think that's hindsight. I think you just call it to get the information. So he calls it in.
No movement yet.
You see him in the iPad. As soon as he calls this in, he says something to the effect of 310 or 310 side. I think he said 310. 310 1R open or something like that.
This is the danger.
So with that information,
Everyone's gonna be inside. Everyone's safe undercover.
that's when Ant makes a play, because he thinks they're all grouping up 10 to make a retake, and he's just trusting off that info. You know, the bad part about it is, like, it's not technically 310. They just were in 10 and then just move back out. To me, this is kind of insane, because, like, they completely give up mid and then try and retake mid, even though we could have been, like, secret pushing up the halls or something, you know?
Start to converge over now. There we go. I mean, this is the
So they, like, completely give up mid after being there, go or go 10 and then go back mid.
You should be safe from a lot of those dirty wall.
So with that play, he's thinking, oh, they're just retaking from 10. I can make a play middle and I just guarantee the round.
There we go.
You know what I mean? So again, little miscomm. That's fucking, it happens, but shouldn't happen, but it happens. Brandon was upset with himself about how he played outer here. He feels like he should get this kill 10 times out of 10. Yeah, sure, hindsight. Yeah, maybe he thinks that too. If he wins that gunfight, we win too. Like, there's a lot of things that could have gone differently.
I played this map this year. I played this map in 29th fucking team. You do not retake. There's a streak in the air. They're gonna be mid. And he said he even called out the guy mid. If there's a guy open, why are you running out P1? Like, what does that have to do? Like, it just seemed like, what the fuck, miscomm? He didn't even have the timing from the play. Like, when he said, like, oh, he called out this, Shotzzy ran out mid like 10 seconds later. What the fuck? Like, what? He didn't even hit. It's not like he hit out mid as soon as he got the info. Like, he didn't even hit it out right away. Bro, that place just, that shit sound like pure cat, bro. Like, that's my instinct. He could, it might not be cat. I don't fucking know. That shit just sound like cat. Motherfucker hit the bottom mid, 20 seconds late. What the fuck? What the fuck? Like, none of you. He said he even called out the guy open. He said he called out the guy. He said 3 open, or he said 1 open, 3 10.
So what do you guys think about this whole scenario in the comment section below? It's very interesting what JP had to say. And look, there's some people that would listen to this and say, oh, here we go again, like the Warlords getting defended. Look, was it a terrible play from Shotzzy? Yeah, I think it was. Was it Skyz's fault precisely? I mean, who knows? The thing is, when Skyz can see where people are in this instance, and this is kind of what Dom was getting at, this is exactly when, at the precise moment, Skyz will be able to see where the red dots are on the map. And at this precise moment, if you look at the minimap, you guys can just about see when it's paused. Got one player here who's going back inside the main building. One player in Drazah who's climbing up the staircase to go back inside, because of course you've got to run away from the missile. And then you've got number 4 who is stuck in tin. So the idea that he called out 3 tin, well, sure, it's possible. I mean, like, Skyz is a world champion. It's difficult to believe that he just said, oh, 3 tin and nothing else. Like, he, you know, 3 tin, he called out the guy mid towards open stairs. And even then, right, like, as Don said, the knowledge that there was a guy open stairs means that when Shotzzy decides to run out mid here, you've got to be aware that it's a possibility, right? Like, it's difficult. Like, this is a miscomm on a different level if the OpTic team genuinely believed that there were 3 players stuck in tin. And yeah, maybe that's partially on Skyz. I mean, I'm sure that there's some degree of blame here on Skyz, but it's still, I don't think it excuses the play, because as Don said, like, it was 10 seconds later that Shotzzy went to make this play. He didn't know what had happened elsewhere. And like, it's, as Don said too, it's inevitable that when you call in a streak like this, there's gonna be people in mid, because that's what happens, right? Like, if you call in a streak, people are gonna run to safety in the mid building, and there's gonna be someone top mid. Like, it was, to me, it was inevitable that there was gonna be somebody top mid. And Skyz had even apparently called out a guy open who could have gone to top mid. I mean, he was gonna be top mid somewhere, so Shotzzy was always gonna be vulnerable to that. So yeah, it's very interesting. Like, I totally understand that miscomm or whatever Skyz said led to a bit of a catalogue of errors, but equally, it's not like, there's still no excuse for Shotzzy and Huke splitting up here. There's still no excuse for, I don't think, having an actual set play or an idea of what you want to do, because look, he calls in the streak, and there's 33 seconds on the clock here. I think that Skyz probably called it in a little bit too early, but even then, by the time the streak actually comes down and hits the ground here, there's like 30 seconds on the clock left. There was plenty of time for one of the OpTic players to make a big rap if they wanted to, but you know, they didn't do that. So Skyz calls in the streak. He's on a 6 spree at this point. By the time it drops down, obviously it's a little bit later, but you know, there was so many ways that OpTic could have won this round, and obviously Dashy's going to be frustrated that he got gunned in the way that he did, but it's definitely a tricky one for OpTic, because this was only a few days ago where JP was saying that after their Falcon series, he made it quite clear to the team that their comms were so bad in that series, if they play like that again, if their comms are that bad, they're not going to make a Sunday. And well, I mean, here we are, round 11 at a critical moment, and clearly the comms to some degree have gone wrong, and then there have been further implications from there. So what do you guys think about all this stuff in the comments below? Clearly some issues they've got to figure out, but OpTic once again finding new ways to lose, and it's still kind of crazy to me that they managed to pull this off every time. Just to quickly mention, by the way, Ace will still be around the shows and everything. I know you guys have been wondering what's going on there, but yeah, we did bring in Don as official new co-host to Dope Check on, well, the show was on yesterday, it'll be on every Monday, the pre-shows and everything as well, before the majors and all that. So yeah, feel free to have a listen if you haven't already, because having Don on the show, you can tell in that clip I was just cheesing. I was like, this is great, I just need to sit back here and relax while Don's gonna just go off on the main stage. This is what it's all about. It makes my job super easy. So yeah, thanks for watching as always. Appreciate the support on the show, the videos. You guys know the drill. Hit the like button if you enjoyed. Subscribe if you're new. Take care, and I'll see you next time.